A number of players out for the Philadelphia 76ers. This is supposed to be the easy stretch, and guys are now sitting out due to injuries, sidelined against the Wizards. We'll touch on it in just a moment.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your hosts, Keith Pompey and Kayla Santiago. Joel Embiid, Paul George, Kyle Lowry all ruled out for tonight's matchup against the Wizards. We're going to preview that game as well. And then a little bit of the woes that were talked about during practice, especially shooting that we saw in that last contest the other night as well. Before we get to that, today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. And you're able to watch us on YouTube, listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. In addition, we also have a free daily newsletter that's on lockedondaily.com. So make sure you go check that out today. My, oh my, Keith. So not only is Joel Embiid not playing once again, now Paul George is being ruled out, Kyle Lowry as well. We already saw the shorthanded Sixers the other night against the Suns. This was supposed to be the easy stretch before they get into playing teams like the Magic and the Thunder and other games as well. And now you're not even seeing any of these guys on the court at the same time. What do you make of this?
I make of it is one of those things where they look at these teams and they feel like that they can beat them without their best players.
Right.
They look at it and say, you know what, we got a tough stretch coming up, beginning with Sunday. And I want to make sure that we get these guys some rest. Now, again, I do think that they do have some ailments going on, right? But I think that this is part of the load management plan. Like Joel Embiid, let's face it, he can't play a lot of games in a row without getting injured or like the knee swelling and all this. And now they're saying the sprained ankle, but he played on it and he played well on it. So all of a sudden now it's one of those things where they kept it. If you notice on the injury report, they kept the injury there. Now I'm just seeing what I see. They kept the injury there, but he kept playing. Now all of a sudden he's missing games because of that injury. So at first we're like, well, what is this injury? So to me, what I really make of it is that they think that they have enough and they want to give these guys some rest to take time off. Is it going to work? We'll find out. They better hope it works, but we'll find out.
All I'm going to say is they are really, really lucky that they're in the Eastern Conference, and the Eastern Conference is not as competitive as it has been in past years, because I understand the load management point of view, but when you are 14-20 on the season, you kind of scratch your head and say, okay, well, you need to start winning some ball games, because this does just not look good right now. There's no consistency with this team, and there really hasn't been all season long. Joel has played 13 of the possible 35 games this year. PG has played 24 of 35. Sixers currently 11th in the East right now. They're 2 games out of the 10 seed, which will qualify them for play-in tournament when we look down the line, and 3.5 games out of that 6 seed. So once again, the Eastern Conference is not competitive, and that is the one thing working on the side for the 76ers. My issue with this, Keith, is that there has been no chemistry. Paul George, his shooting woes continue with this team. The ISO game without Joel Embiid on the floor has continued. With Joel Embiid on the floor, it's the two-man game of Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. They still haven't figured out how to get Paul George in there. He's also been struggling in addition to that as well. So, okay, do I understand it from the point of view? Yeah, we want them to be healthy, load management, all this stuff. But you think it's all going to click against the Thunder and the Magic and really good teams? Because I really don't think so. I think you need to bring them back in games like this against the Wizards, where you clearly think that you can win, but why not have a chance to work on those things and then maybe have a game off before you go into that really tough schedule? Because it is only going to get tougher from here. And the 76ers, they don't have a lot of time to click against teams like the Thunder, so on and so forth.
Yeah, you raise a great point. The one thing I will say is that Nick Nurse did say yesterday that moving forward, they have a plan to where they hope that maybe Joel Embiid could start to play in some more back-to-backs. Now, when we talk about these back-to-backs, they have their first back-to-back that they're going to have coming up is going to be next Tuesday and Wednesday against the OKC Thunder and the New York Knicks. Now, again, Nick Nurse has said things in the past, and he said it with a straight face, and he said it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. So, again, you have to wait and see. However, that is what he said. So, but you are raising a great point, because the thing about the continuity is, and I feel like there's a lot of people who get swept away when they see the Sixers go on this win streak, right? The Sixers will win back-to-back games. Joel Embiid will have 30 points. Maxey will have 30 points. And all of a sudden, everyone goes out and they say, we're ready. We're back.
Right.
Did it. We did this and that. And then 2 games later, Joel Embiid is out. Paul George is out. And now those same people are like, what's going on? What's going on? And you raised a great point about the East being weak. However, a lot of those teams that they wanted to catch are starting to have winning records. The
Right.
Sixers heading into tonight's game are 6 games below 500. These other teams are starting to get winning records. Look, the Detroit Pistons are a 500 team right now. So
Yeah.
when you look at that, you're missing these games. You're not building chemistry, but you're setting yourself up to maybe get left out in the cold if you're not careful.
And they really, when you look at it, haven't been careful in terms of when you look at the schedule. So we're going to touch on the game at hand in just a moment here, but also we have to look at what's after this, because both of us said this is a perfect time for the 76ers to gain some momentum, pick up some wins, and really feel confident about that record going into this tough stretch. They have the Magic, the Thunder, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Bucks, the Nuggets on the road. The Bucks and the Nuggets are both on the road. Then they're at home against the Cavs. Then they're on the road against the Bulls, the Lakers, the Kings. They play the Nuggets again and the Celtics, and you still have tough games after that going into early February too. So there's no more time for this team to mess around. They really need to start winning some basketball games right now. And it definitely, when you look at it from that point of view, you can't go into any game thinking that they're going to win a ball game. I understand the Wizards aren't a good team. Are the 76ers a good team, though? Are the 76ers a good team without Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Kyle Lowry? Absolutely not. So the 76ers, there is no win guaranteed for this team. And they are going out there acting like they have this good record and they're above 500 and that they're just going to win these basketball games. It's going to be a tough matchup against the Wizards without those guys. And I understand maybe you want to save them for the Thunder and the Magic. Cool, that's fine. There's a plan in place. But how long are we going to get told that there's a plan in place for this team? We're going to have to wait and see. But Keith, they can't go into games acting like it's just an automatic winner. They have a really good opportunity to win, because the 76ers without those guys are a bad team.
Yeah, and we look at this, and they have a couple players on the Washington team, and I know they're struggling. But one guy you talked about we didn't talk about is Valanciunas, the center.
Yeah.
He used to give Embiid fits. Embiid's not playing. Drummond may not play. Yabu is 6'8". Adembona is 6'8". They could be in trouble with that one. You know what I mean? So, it's going to have to be the Kelly Oubre game. You're going to, Tyrese Maxey, he's going to be excited, but he's probably going to have to score 50 points. I mean, and again, I get it. This is the Wizards, y'all. But at the same time, when I look at this Wizards team and you take these guys off the floor and you have the injuries that they have, Kayla's right, y'all. Like, this could be a little bit tougher. Now, who knows, Kayla? They go out there and beat them by 40. But
yeah, and then we'll be there's a chance if they play well, but I don't think that you can go into any NBA game not having two of your better players and say, okay, well, we're just not going to play them because, we can beat this team. It's the NBA we're talking about. These are still professional basketball players, right?
Exactly. And, you can't be like how some people are, oh, man, that dude's a scrub. I'm like, okay, you say that right now. But, like, we're talking about this. They have Jordan Poole. They have Kyle Kuzma. and you have Jonas Valanciunas, Tunis. I'm always
Mhm.
butchering these things. And then you also have like, Malcolm Brogdon. Like right now, if you take the Sixers guys, off the stars off, these guys that we're talking about right now, even with some of these guys, they would start. Like I'm
Mhm.
saying, like, well, Valanciunas would probably come off the bench, but Kyle Kuzma would be the stretch four that they wanted. Jordan Poole would probably be in the backcourt, and they would slide Maxey off the ball if they had to. Brogdon, he's a starting level kind of caliber point guard who the Sixers could benefit from having. So yeah, these are all legitimate players who make it interesting when you don't have PG and you don't have Joel Embiid.
They could be in some trouble here tonight. We're going to break this down a little bit more in just a moment. Once again, tip off at 7 p.m. against the Washington Wizards. No Joel Embiid and no Paul George. Lowry also ruled out of this contest. But we're going to break it down even more when we come back right here on Locked On 76ers. And I want to take a moment to introduce you to a brand new mobile game that I'm really excited about. So, Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever dreamed of being a college basketball head coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes in Ultimate College Basketball HC. You control every detail of your program, from recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals, and managing scholarships. It's all in your hands. This is a great tool as well if you want to get into that world and see how it is just at a glimpse point of view. When it comes to a game time, you get to draw offensive players and set your strategy. The way you play won't just affect the current season, it will shape the future of your school's basketball program as well. It's a game that lets you feel the full weight of what it means to be a head coach and lead your team to glory. Here's a special offer for Locked On NBA listeners. Use promo code Locked On NCBB. That's in all caps. Once again, Locked On NCBB inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. To download the Ultimate College Basketball HC, just visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up on the App Store as well. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, so we have touched on how this matchup is not necessarily a win that the 76ers can just have in their pocket. We've seen how they've played teams undermanned so far this year, and it doesn't always work out in their favor. I think the biggest thing that I want to see and the takeaway that I would have previewing this game is I want to see a little bit less ISO ball and a little bit more sharing the ball. And I know that sounds crazy because there's no Joel Embiid, there's no Paul George. I also do expect Tyrese Maxey to score at least 30 plus points. He's going to need to in this game if they want to come out on top. But this is an opportunity too to get other people involved. Keep Kelly Oubre involved in the game plan. Yabusele as well. Get those other players that can contribute and don't consistently go away from them if you don't have to. Keith, what do you want to see in this matchup? Because the 76ers are severely undermanned once again.
You know what? You used to raise a great point, sharing the ball, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of sharing the ball. I think
Yeah.
we're going to see. I mean, I think I think what we'll see is we'll see Maxi get a lot of points. I think Kelly Oubre is going to get a lot of points, right? Yabu and then Caleb, right? But I feel like Maxi is going to score a lot, and so is Kelly. I think that's going to be a high scoring backcourt. I mean, again, I would love to see them share the ball, but I also love to see them share the ball with a full complement of players, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? Because that's
Mhm.
what they need. And like you said before, you know, this is one of those games where you work on things. But right now, it turned into one of those games where you need to desperately get a win. Right?
Yeah.
So the best way that they to do that is basically Tyrese Maxey being having the starring role.
Yeah, and he's going to need to. And I know that he stepped up to the plate before. When you look at this Wizards team, too, I mean, I know their numbers aren't great. And this is what we touched on before. We're not saying that the Wizards are a team the 76ers have to look out for. You look at their numbers, they're one of the worst teams in terms of defense and giving up points to opposing teams per game, 121.8 points per game to opposing teams right now in their average so far on the season. They're 14th in the NBA and rebounds per game as well. The 76ers on the other side, you look at them too. They rank in the bottom 5 in the NBA in rebounds per game, but also they're 11th in the league with 43.7 rebounds allowed per contest. So the numbers are starting to shift a little bit. And I understand when you look at it on paper and you say, okay, well, the Wizards are a much worse team. Their defensive ranking right now, what they haven't been able to do, the players that they have, I don't care. This is once again a team that you look at and you have to say the 76ers are severely undermanned and they're not getting any chemistry going into what we see in this back half of January being a very, very tough schedule for this team. So, like I said, I would like to see them share the ball a little bit more. Tyrese Maxey, he's going to have to go for at least 30. I don't see any world where he absolutely does not, but I want to see other guys get involved. Do I think they're going to do it? Absolutely not, but we'll wait and see. Defensively, too, I mean, I know we talk about Valanciunas and Poole, but defense has really not been consistent, Keith, throughout these last matchups for the Philadelphia 76ers. And defensively, they're really going to have to lock in, too, because those two guys can definitely help the Wizards win this game here tonight.
Yeah, they're gonna have to lock in with those two guys. I mean, because they can definitely help them. And then also, I mean, a lot of people are making a big deal out of the defense, and it was 2 games that I saw, well, actually 3. The fourth quarter against, and we talk about the offensive blunders, but the fourth quarters on New Year's Day against Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox did whatever he wanted to.
Right.
Against Golden State, that whole game, Golden State did whatever it wanted to. And then the same thing you can say about the Phoenix Suns. So when we talk about basically, I want to say 8 quarters, because I'll say the first quarter against the Suns, the Sixers look good, but the last quarter against Sacramento, the whole game against the 4 quarters against the Warriors, and then the
Yeah.
last 3 quarters against this last team, the Suns, they looked horrible. So the only time that they looked powerful, really, a team, was when they played the Brooklyn Nets, who were without 8 players. So to me, that's a concern, especially when you have people who can get their own shot, right? If you have a guy who can create his own shot like a Jordan Poole can, right, you could be in trouble, because that's one thing we know about him is he can score a lot of points. So
Mhm.
that's something that the Sixers have to be careful of.
And let me clarify too, for my takeaway, I'm not worried about a Wizards team that has 6 wins. It's more of the principle of the 76ers saying, oh, well, we can go in and just not play much of our guys. And, they're going to be on the injury report because they definitely have a guaranteed win against the Wizards. That's my problem with the situation right now, because I think you take away the opportunity to work on that chemistry, because not everything has been clicking. Keith, as you just alluded to, nothing really has been clicking for this team, even when everybody is in, right? I understand that Joel can go out and get a 30 piece, and so can Tyrese Maxey, but as a unit, this team has still not clicked, and we are in January now, people. And I know they've been sitting out, but these are teams that you want to play against to have that opportunity to grow that and to be able to utilize that when you go in your tough and raunting schedule of the Thunder, when you look at the other teams as well, the Celtics, the Nuggets. That's what you want to already have when you go into these games, not trying to build it against teams that are on the top echelon of the NBA. So that's my biggest problem with how they're kind of approaching this matchup. Once again, if guys are really injured, you want them to sit out, but you also don't want guys picking and choosing when they can sit against teams where they haven't been able to. I brought up the numbers earlier, right? Joel Embiid has played 13 of the possible 35 games that he could play in. So that already points out a problem that, okay, they have a plan in place. That's what they say. But right now, the principle of it is not my favorite. I'll be honest here on Locked On 76ers. So we're going to wait and see. Once again, Nick Nurse does say he has a plan. So we'll see if that plan ends up succeeding what they can do in the middle of January and these games coming forward against these tough matchups in their schedule later on in the month. But it only hasn't been the defense. We talked about that just a moment ago. It's also the shooting and the shooting woes that we touched on after that game against the Suns, and that have been continued to be talked about throughout practice as well. So we're going to touch on that in just a moment here on Locked On 76ers. I do have to say, talking about the NBA and everything in between gets me really excited to go to a game live. And the games that you want to go to live right now have to be the NFL playoffs. They're the ones that you can get fantastic deals on right now. So if you want to take the guesswork out of everything, all you have to do is go to Game Time. Saturday night, 8 p.m., the Ravens, the Steelers. It's going to be their lone home playoff game of this season. You can look at right now the top 1% value. If you're a Ravens fan, the last home game or for the playoffs, you can look at 228 all in. You look at the lower end zone, 114 row 8. That's a super deal as well. And if you only want to do 131, it's the top 10% value as a great deal. That's the upper sideline that you can watch. And if you're on the road and you want to watch the Steelers and you want your best options possible, make sure you head over to Game Time right now to be able to see that game. And so many more games going on throughout the NFL playoffs. You will not want to miss it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, make an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code Locked On NBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Cool. So the shooting woes just have been awful for this team. We saw it a few nights ago against the Suns. They started out really hot in the first quarter of action and then really dropped in the third quarter, 3 for 14 in the field, 1 for 8 from 3 in that third quarter. Keith, this is something that it seems like at practice that they have talked about, that they have addressed a little bit as well. Take us through that because it has been a struggle for this squad, especially in the shooting realm this season.
Yeah, you know what? It's crazy because you look at this team and you're kind of surprised that they're shooting as poorly as they are, and the reason being is you have certain guys, and I get it. Certain guys are getting older, and things happen as they get older, but they have one of the most renowned shooting coaches around, and Rico Hines, right? He's a good workout guy. He gets guys together. And it's kind of mind-boggling to me that this team basically is struggling with the fundamentals, right? So with that being said, like you look at it and you say to yourself, like, what's the problem? And the problem was the last game when they played the Phoenix Suns was the spacing was atrocious,
Yeah.
right? Another thing that was bad in the first half, Kayla, in the first half, they shot 5 for 18 at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
5 for 18 at the rim. I mean, that you're missing bunnies, you're getting stuff blocked, the whole nine. That's hard to do, like in the NBA game. And a lot of it, you talk to Nick Nurse and he says, you know what, we gotta during timeouts, we had to keep like reminding these guys, like when you go in there, you don't look for a foul. Don't expect to get a foul called. You have two things. You go in there hard and you try to score, or you go in there and you stop and you kick it out to an open 3-point shooter. But we're talking about they were 5 for 18 in the first half alone on baskets at the rim. That's crazy. Shots at the rim.
It is crazy. And I think, too, I like your point that you alluded to of driving for fouls. Realistically, the only player on the 76ers that's going to get away with that because of his caliber in the league is Joel Embiid. And he shouldn't be doing it. I mean, looking at the games throughout this season, it drives me crazy when you can tell that he's just trying to do his little swoop, go to the basket, and almost barely puts a shot up because he feels some contact and he wants the foul. Now, granted, he does get hit on the wrist sometimes and it is a foul, but at the same time, that is not the overall thought process of what you should have going to the cup. Don't play for the foul. Go up strong, and if you get fouled, you go to the line for the old-fashioned three-point play. You don't sit there and don't go up strong and end up missing shots that you could have made because in your mind, you're going to play for the foul. Once again, they're not going to have the same whistle that Joel Embiid does. That's just the reality of the situation. So that's something that they really have to focus in on too, because that's just unacceptable. And it even raises our point too, when you look at those numbers, this team is saying that, oh, we don't have to play Joel Embiid, Paul George, guys can rest against the Wizards. And then you look at those numbers and you say they're just missing wide open shots right by the rim. Nothing is clicking right now for the Philadelphia 76ers, and they cannot take any game or any matchup lightly from here on out.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you got to work on things, and that's what it is. You got to work on things, and it's hard, to work on things when, um, you don't have your top guys there. Like, I hate to say it, but okay, so Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, Yabu are going to have a 3-man game tomorrow. What
Right.
can we take from that? I mean, unless Joel Embiid and Andre Drummond are done for the rest of the season, and unless Paul George is done for the rest of the season, it's nothing that's going to. I mean, again, I get it. You're going to have certain lineups, but the 3-man game that we want to see is the one between George and Embiid, right? And now, luckily for them, Washington is going to be playing the second game of a back-to-back.
Right.
Several of their guys aren't going to play, right? So that's the one thing, the bonus that they have. But at the same time, you got to work on things. Even if you play these guys for a half and it's a blowout, or the stuff that they used to do last year and they did with Doc Rivers. Let's go hard for 3 quarters. Give me what you got, and then you'll rest up,
Because it's all not going to click, as we've alluded to. And once again, I understand where people are coming from of, oh, this is the load management plan. This is that. The Sixers are 14-20 people. They are not even at 500. It doesn't even look like they're close to 500. So there's not a lot of time for them to say, okay, well, they can just have load management this, load management that. I understand you want Joel Embiid to be healthy for the playoffs and Paul George at that too. But at the same time, you don't want to put yourself in a situation now where you're going to get bopped out of the first round, because that's the reality of the situation of how they look at if they come in as a low seed and have to play a high seed early on for the 76ers. Once again, they take on the Wizards. That's tonight. The Wizards coming off that back-to-back. This game will be in Philadelphia at 7 p.m. No predictions, no final score predictions here on Locked On 76ers right now for this game, because it is really hard to tell with them being undermanned. But Keith, what are some of your big keys to this game going in for the Philadelphia 76ers? Give me 2 keys to the game while we round out this show here today.
I mean, they got to shoot the ball. They have to make shots, and we'll find out who's going to play. Like I do believe that their heavy hitters are probably going to play. Now, I don't, Malcolm Brogdon, I expect him to play. But, I mean, I'm talking about, like, if Jordan Poole plays, you got to get somebody on him, because, the one thing that he can do is he can light it up. So you got to play quality defense. But, the Sixers got to focus on their offense. I mean, like little things like making foul shots, like, making bunnies at the rim, hitting threes. Like they just, the Sixers just been struggling offensively. So, I think they got to take care of the fundamentals, making shots and playing quality defense.
I think one of my keys too will be making shots in addition to sharing the ball and seeing who they can get involved. I'm not saying take away from Tyrese Maxey. He probably is going to have at least 30 plus points in this game here tonight, but also not playing so ISO ball heavy, because we've seen that hurt the Sixers down the line so far this season. And then defense is going to be a key for this team, especially if the heavy hitters do come in for the Wizards into this contest here tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Once again, tip-off at the Wells Fargo Center at 7 p.m. It's the Wizards and the 76ers. No Joel Embiid, no Paul George, and no Kyle Lowry for this team. So they're undermanned once again, looking to try to get a big win before they get into the strength of that schedule. They play the Pelicans next, and then it's kind of just a track meet from here on out. You got the Magic, you got the Thunder, you got teams like the Nuggets, the Celtics as well. So it's going to be a tough ride going forward for this team, and they look to start it with a win here against the Washington Wizards. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you all after the game.